take you to Ms. Gillard now. She's looking pretty healthy. Let's hear what she has to say.
I'm going to study this in detail. Okay, everybody's right to go? Yep. Okay. This morning I've had the privilege of attending the opening session of Leaders Week here at the UN General Assembly. I had the opportunity to hear the address of the Secretary-General, to hear the address of the President of Brazil, President Rousseff, the address of President Obama of the United States of America, and I also had the opportunity to hear the address of President Yudhoyono of Indonesia and congratulate him on the making of that address. So the Leaders Week here at the General Assembly has started in full and in earnest. I've also had the opportunity during the course of the day to conduct a number of bilateral meetings. I've met with the Prime Minister of Japan, with the President of Egypt, with the President of Liberia and the President of Malawi, and engaged in a broad set of discussions with those four leaders. I will shortly have the opportunity to make a statement at an event which is focused on peace building. We're familiar with the concept of peacekeeping. It's what Australians do. And indeed, since the UN was first founded, more than 65,000 Australians, Defence Force personnel and police have deployed overseas to help build peace in other countries. We participated in more than 50 missions under the mandate of the UN or multilateral missions. Peace building is catching the concept that to make a lasting peace, often you need to do more than just settle the peace. You need to help rebuild the country. This is work in which Australia has had experience, whether it be in the Solomons or in East Timor. We have a proud track record of peace building, and I'll have the opportunity to speak at an event for the UN Peace Building Commission to talk about Australia's experience. That event will lead to a declaration to try and sharpen the focus of the world on peace building, which is so often required when countries that have a low development status are also emerging from conflict. Later today, I will host a reception for UN representatives, an Australian reception. I'm looking forward to that. We are anticipating quite a large crowd, and that will give me the opportunity to speak to many of the people who are attending here at UN Leaders Week and many of the permanent representatives who are here in New York representing their nations. So I'm happy to take questions. Yes, Phil.
So just firstly, are you feeling better? And secondly, what's your mail on the vote? How are the numbers looking?
Right. Well, as to the first question, I am a bit better. Thank you very much. On the second, I'm not going to be engaging in a running commentary on all of this. We're encouraged by the level of support that we are seeing for Australia's bid for the Security Council. So I am encouraged by the support we're receiving, but it is going to be a close contest, and part of the work here during the week is, talking to nations about putting their support for Australia.
The Egyptian president said that today in American press said that he sees the US as a friend but not necessarily an ally. After your meeting with him, are you concerned by that? He's, of course, a senior member of the Muslim Brotherhood as well.
We are dealing with a new Egypt, a new democratic Egypt, and it's not surprising that as this new Egypt emerges, that it will take time for people to establish relations with the new Egypt. It will just take time for people to work through. I had a good and comprehensive discussion with the President of Egypt about issues in his country as it undergoes this democratic transition and issues in the region in which Egypt lies, the region in which he lives. We also had some conversations about religious tolerance, so it was a good, widespread conversation.
Prime Minister, no one wished any illness on you at all, but it would have been disappointing for you, no doubt, to have missed so many events yesterday, including the dinner last night with Barack Obama. How disappointing was it, and did it derail your efforts this week on the lobbying front?
Oh, certainly not. I did miss a couple of events yesterday. I didn't feel able to deliver a 25-minute address right at that moment. So Senator Carr admirably stepped in and did a very good job, as I understand it. And I didn't have the opportunity to attend the reception hosted by President and Mrs. Obama, but my program has proceeded normally today and will for the rest of the week.
Malawi made the point she was disappointed that you hadn't managed to get to Malawi for the Organisation of African Unity meeting. Do things like that, can they sway to vote one way or the other? The disappointment of a country like Malawi, can that make a big difference in this vote?
Well, two things happened with the hosting of the African Union meeting in Malawi. First, because of circumstances in Australia, that is, we were moving imminently to the start of the carbon price. I made the decision that I needed to be attending to that work in Australia. Second, actually, the African Union meeting moved from Malawi to another country, so it wasn't ultimately hosted in Malawi. I've had a good conversation with the President of Malawi today, and I did, of course, forward apologies for not being able to attend the African Union meeting, and Parliamentary Secretary Richard Marles attended in my stead.
If you don't mind, I've seen two estimates of how much Australia has spent on the race in the last 5 years, 24 million and 40 million. Maybe it's a US versus Australian dollars. How much have you spent? and how do you think it compares to that of Luxembourg and Finland?
Right. If that's an American accent, then I'd possibly remind our dollar's worth more than yours at the moment. So if we were doing a conversion into US dollars, we'd be taking the number down. The amount allocated over a 5-year period was $24 million. Of course, though, much of the work that our Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade does routinely has been brought to bear to assist with the bid.
The President made much of the recent violence in the Arab world and Muslim world against the video. What did you make of the points made by President Obama, and also have you picked up any tone from other leaders you've been meeting on that issue?
I thought President Obama gave a very moving speech, starting as it did with the life story of Chris Stevens, the ambassador who lost his life in Libya. And I thought by starting with a human tale, it helped him tell the broader story, which is that intolerance, which leads to violence and leads to death, is a needless tragedy, that, real people lose their lives, real people with families, and that there is never an